How do you think about the sort of criticism that comes from some folks that's like, well, you just have, I just have a blind faith on Elon and Tesla just doing something instead of looking at the numbers, like actually sitting down and analyzing and looking at their profits going down, their margins going down, the net income going down. How do you still have so much conviction, and how do you have so much conviction, and how is it any different than having blind faith? How do you go through that thought process?
So I think nobody can really blame me for not thinking. I'm putting all my research out there and for free. So it's not as if anybody has to subscribe to anything. They all get it. I'm doing every quarter the financial strength. That's what I really know how to do, because that's where I come from the rating world. Tesla is as strong as ever by itself, but also relative to the rest of the industry. Tesla has better financial strength than Apple, right? So, yesterday when people were starting to go, oh, maybe Apple is stopping because they're buying Tesla, I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Can you define how are they stronger than Apple from a financial perspective?
Well, because they don't have debt. They have hardly any debt. And I think what Elon is trying to do, which is hardly anybody, he's always going for the hard way, right? He can never take it easy. I gotta give that to the guy. But that gives us stockholders, obviously, a lot of comfort. When you see, for example, Polestar now, who has to do another offering and get $1 billion in, because otherwise they're toast. I don't think that will happen with Tesla. I actually wish they would do a capital raise rather than ever going into loans or whatever, because I do believe, it's a good moment to raise money again and go quicker into the future projects. But that's not what it's all about. Today, the capital structure of Tesla is as strong as can be. Compare it to equity, compare it to EBITDA, compare it to anything you want. You see my tables. It is, with Google, the only company worldwide that has this strength, right? And I do that every quarter. I go into all those earnings. I go through it all. So talk about homework. The other thing is, when you make products, and you've worked for them, you will have phases where you launch products, you sell a lot, you have to, manage the commercial distribution of it. You need to be sure that, sales work and everything. And then comes always a moment when it flattens out a little bit. And I think we're in that period. It's very difficult to time, and I don't have no pretension to know better. Yeah, that's exactly it. I have no pretension to know better than any of the Tesla people have. But I think what they tried to do, and I, if I'm right with this theory, it's actually a genius, is by lowering prices, because that's actually the only component that changed, right? It is the fact that the prices became more affordable of the cars. And interest rates were certainly a big contributor to it, but it's also the fact that if you want to make sure EV adoption doesn't stand still, because you're actually fighting the world, right? Everybody's against it. You're the one who wants to make it happen. You have to have these cars reliable and affordable. Reliable, we are there, but affordable is still a stretch. So by making them affordable, well, you're giving up margin. There's just, there's no other way to do it. You can't. And we're the only ones who have margin on EVs. Nobody else has margins on EVs. So he was able, by starting doing that in January 2023, he was able to kick the whole rest of the EV industry up, telling them you have to get even better, because we're going to be competitive. We're not just sitting there with our 20% margins. We're going to go down, and you will have to become better. Given you have no margin yet, it's even steeper. And you see what happened to Lucid and Rivian. And BYD, by the way, as well. I'm really waiting for those BYD results. It's all good that they're throwing out so many cars, but actually they threw out cars at enormous reductions, and I'm really looking for those financials. Because BYD, just as a little parenthesis, because people never talk about it, is a company that is making a good, steady margin on batteries. Not huge, but a good, steady margin, and never had car margins extrapolated. Then they did that in Q3, and it looked fabulous. They only did it for one little window. And then came Q4, where suddenly they really pushed the cars out, and you saw all these price reductions. And now I'm really waiting for those Q4 financials. And I hope they're doing the split again so that we see both, because it's not going to be as fabulous as Q3 looked like. But that's another story. So going back to Tesla, The only thing that needed to change was affordability. But it had obviously the trigger effect that you see it in profitability. I mean, that's just what it is. Less in, less out. That's the way it goes. Now, as a Tesla investor, you have to ask yourself from January onwards, this is now 14 months ago, whether you can live with that. I mean, you just took into the stomach that Elon sold 4 or 5 times Tesla stock to finance X. You just woke up from that again, thought, oh, let's please get up from $100. And then he comes with the price cuts. So if you survived that moment, if you had the stomach to stick out there, I think it's actually getting easier now, because now you understand what it's all for. So Model 3, a refresh, beautiful. Model Y, still best sold car. Model X, the love of my life. Model S, wonderful. We're going to have a Roadster. We have the Cybertruck. I think it's rolling. Could it have been quicker? Of course. Would I love the next generation car quicker? Of course. The sooner it's here, the better it is. But I rather have a perfect product. I mean, why did Apple give up? Because hardware is the toughest job in the world, right? Manufacturers nothing. Apple doesn't manufacture. I mean, I know everybody tells me, yeah, they do a little bit. No, they don't. They subcontract everything. So if you are in a position where you're vertically integrated and where you're manufacturing and where you're doing the hard job, well, that there will be bubble times when it's a little bit less inflated, when it's a little bit less going. So what they tried to do, in my view, was have the Cybertruck, have maybe even the Roadster to decorate this flattening growth curve before the next generation and the unboxing models are up, and have energy hit in. But obviously, we all know the energy issue is that you don't get the financials straight away. You have to, install them in multiple installments. So you have them. Yes, we see them as reserves already in the balance sheet, but we don't see it on profitability yet. So every quarter, it will be very interesting now how much more of energy will filter in to smoothen out the financials. And then there's the bot. So if you have a 2 or 3 year horizon and can just stomach what's happening at the moment, which may be still a bit dry and rough, there's no issue. If you don't like it, well, you should have gotten out last year, January, because there were enough signals to it. And that's why I said that's when I had my coming to Jesus moment. And once I was over it, I had no problem with it anymore.
Yeah, that's super insightful stuff. If I think about sort of how I'm thinking about it, and maybe it's having the luxury of being in the name since 2012, is that I've seen this before. I've seen this before. So like from 2014 to 2019, it was just this thing. It was just a sideways thing. Within the context of 40% short interest, a bungled Model X ramp, a bungled Model 3 ramp, Elon taking Tesla private at 420, smoking a joint on Joe Rogan, calling somebody a pedophile. Okay, like this is like, and then so when we, and then quarterly earnings calls where he's telling the analyst to be quiet and bringing Gally on to talk about his questions and whatever. So it's like, for me, it's par for the course. It's
2018. That was glorious.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if I think back to the story, most of Tesla's history is ugly. It's Tesla being a happy, positive story in the eyes of the public, to me, seems like a more recent phenomenon. It's a 2020, 21, 2022 kind of thing, And so viewing it from that lens, I think helps me put a lot of it in context. And I think there's also the added thing where I don't think it gets talked about enough, and I actually made a video about this last week, where with Elon being more talkative on X and being much more willing to, let's say, lead from the front from a free speech issue on a platform that he purchased because of free speech, which is, if you look at his leadership style, aligns perfectly with leading from the front. You know what I'm saying? Now that same audience that has been exposed to his incredibly ambitious goal of moving the world to sustainable energy, all of a sudden that group is being disrupted by a message that's a 180 of where that group traditionally is from that perspective. And so you have that dynamic on top of it, which is fueling a lot of the discussion on X as well. But in the end, if that was the majority, if that was the masses, I feel like, and you're blurry. Can you still hear me? I just want to make sure you can still hear me, because you're like blurring out a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm lagging for you. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you're still there.
Okay, I heard
Okay.
you. It was hashing out, but you're completely right. I wouldn't have called it ugly. I would have called it I don't know, diversified. I mean, there's no dull day in Tesla land, but
Sure.
but you're right. You remember the series we did about a year ago on ESG and before that?
Yeah.
I mean, he's disrupting this whole elite establishment. He's giving them the middle finger. I mean, he told them. I'm loving that side of it. I love this
Same.
rebellious side of it. I honestly, I appreciate, but I do believe that somebody who wants to be in a smooth stock that was at 400 and should go to 800 just in a straight line, for them it's tough, right? It's just, But the only recipe I can give these people is think about the mission. If you can align with the mission, and if you see what they're doing, and if go back to Investor Day, I don't know, I think I watched Investor Day 15 times, if not 20. If you can align with what they're doing there, if you see this team and understand how good these people are, these are the best of the best. I mean, Rebecca Tinnich in charging, look what she's doing. Nobody got that charging network up. We got it at the best price everywhere. Right? Who did that? Nobody else. And this is not the end of charging. Charging will have many more chapters, but any little thing you take, they're going for the best. And is it without hurdles? No, of course it's not. And I'm sure there are employees who would sometimes wish Elon would shut up because it's their job. It's, there's so much to it. But
I don't know about that. Yeah. I think the employees like it.
They like it? All of them? You think so?
Yeah, because, if I think back to my time, it's like, because this was a topic of discussion, maybe a very small percentage of them are like, why are you saying that? But like a huge majority, I think, are there because they're wired a certain way. They want to fight, they want to fight. They want to find something to fight against.
Yeah, and the enemy becomes clearer. You see, the enemy becomes clearer. I mean, what he's doing at the moment with Google and what he did last week with Microsoft is genius. By him shaming them, this is it. It's on the table now. I loved it this morning because Joe Gebbia, who is on the board, the former co-founder of Airbnb, is on the board of Tesla. He jumped on the subject and was outspoken about it. Obviously, we had Bill Ackman, who was very outspoken on some other topics. I love it. These guys are coming out of their homes, and this is it. And it's all happening right here on X. It's not happening in the Wall Street Journal. It's not happening in the New York Times. It's happening right here on X.
And I think that how it's impacting the zeitgeist, so how it's impacting social discourse.
So good. Oh.
Zeitgeist. You see that? Yeah, I am.
Got it.
I know words. I would have gotten. Thank you. But how that now has entered the zeitgeist, I think it's super underappreciated. So, like, for example, if I think about all the podcasts that I typically listen to, which some of them are a little bit more niche, but like the Joe Rogan Experience, the All In podcast, a little bit more niche, but it's more like super finance driven. Elon, X, Tesla, every single podcast, these products come up and these people come up. And I don't think people understand that. And if I use my channel as an example, so one of the things we've been able to do is take and basically all the spaces that Elon has done on X, we've made them so that they're actually watchable and listenable, right? We saw that as this is like, these are great conversations. Nobody's even getting exposed to them after they go dormant. So then we're like, okay, so let's make them actually so that people can listen. And the brand new audience that has brought to this channel is insane. And the commentary is incredibly positive around it. And it's like the people that traditionally would have never paid attention to the story are saying things like, I'm so glad there's somebody out there fighting for this. I'm so glad out there that's sticking up for, this stuff. I'm so glad that Elon's leading the charge from this. And I think that entire picture is being missed. And my hypothesis is, and I don't know if these are connected, but when you think about the companies, Tesla specifically, next leg of growth, it's everyone else. It's the people. It's not like you, me, and the few crazy of us that are obsessing about the story on a daily basis. It is the population, and the population at large listen to Joe Rogan, listen to other podcasts, like political podcasts, listen to societal podcasts, watch entertainment, where the Cybertruck's going to be on every freaking rap music video. Okay. Like this is where this is going. And I'm just surprised by the lack of foresight when it comes to people that are so negative on how it impacts their emotions or feelings because of what the individual is saying. I'm truly surprised by that. Yeah.
Well, because
that shouldn't happen.
I agree with you, but the other social media are all pretty, right? I haven't been for years on Facebook other than for my job, and lots of immigration stuff is happening on Facebook. Actually, there's one thing, if ever I could get Linda or Elon's attention to it, one good feature that exists on Facebook is private groups, because yes, here you can do communities, but everything is public, and the fact and you can do DM groups, but it's not the same way than doing groups. So one thing I had used a lot for my professional life were groups on immigration, where I helped a lot, and that brought me a lot of clients after that. And currently also on, because I'm doing Zepbound, the shot to lose weight. It's like Ozempic, but the second generation. And so there are groups of 150,000 people, mainly ladies, but 150,000 exchanging, how they're dieting and what they're doing, whatever. All that is not happening on X. On X, it's the brutal, honest rebels, right? We're screaming at each other. I mean, I love it, but I always feel I'm changing personality when I open Facebook, become the nice lad, older lady, and then I'm going back to X, and I'm coming my fighter uniform on again. So he's missing out on some of the on some of the opportunities that social media has, and he's leaving those. I'm going to be a bit nasty now, but those nice sheep on Instagram and Facebook and all that. But to change the world, you should not look after the sheep. You should look after the lions, right? That's how it works in the life. And he has brought all the lions to X, and they're roaring and they're going.